Major support for Out to Lunch Acadiana is provided by the law firm of Jones Walker, established in 1937 with over 375 attorneys in offices throughout the U.S., providing a comprehensive range of services to a local, national, and international client base. JonesWalker.com. Support also comes from Wyndham Garden Lafayette.
From Cafe Vermilionville in Lafayette, we're out to lunch with Professor of Finance and Director of the award-winning Berken Road Reports, Peter Ricchiuti. It's business, Acadiana style.
Hi, I'm Andre Moreau, sitting in today for Peter Ricchiuti. Welcome to Out to Lunch. You know, a few football seasons ago, after years of losing, the Saints suddenly started to become a winning team. People back then would explain the change of fortune with a knowing look and the two words, Drew Brees. In Acadiana, people have recently started exchanging the same knowing look when they talk about the impressive number of new businesses starting up around here. So what folks do is they look at each other and they say, UL. What they're referring to is officially known as the B.I. Moody III College of Business Administration at the University of Louisiana Lafayette. On this show and in conversations, so many people talk glowingly about the effect the UL Business School is having on the growth and, really importantly, diversification of the Acadiana economy, that we thought it was about time to find out what's going on inside those business school buildings. Dr. Gwen Fontenot is the interim dean of the business school, a position she's held since 2015. Dr. Fontenot is in her second tour of duty at UL. During the first one, she taught at the business school from 1984 to 89, and this tour started out in 1999. Gwen, welcome to Out to Lunch.
Thank you, Andre.
Dr. Geoffrey Stewart is the Moody College of Business Administration's Associate Professor of Marketing. Dr. Stewart has been teaching at UL since 2003. Jeff, welcome to Out to Lunch.
Thank you, Andre.
Now, Gwen, you're the boss, so we'll start with you, okay? Tech companies are moving to Lafayette because, among other incentives, they can find highly trained employees, which they have told us here on Out to Lunch that they attribute this to UL. On the entrepreneurial side, UL business grads are running very successful local businesses ranging from breweries to manufacturing electronic products that compete with Apple. As the current dean of the school, can you point to a single or predominant reason that you're turning out a generation of success stories? Is it something in the water at UL maybe? Could it be that these days business is the new black and you're attracting the best and brightest? So what do you think is going on here?
Well, Andre, that's actually accurate because in the last 3 years we've been attracting some of the brightest students in the state of Louisiana and the southern region. So we have had some of the largest freshman classes in the last 3 years with the highest ACT scores that we've had in the history of the university. So to say that we are doing it because of the attraction of those students is an accurate statement. Not only are we increasing the size of our freshman classes and having higher ACTs, but we have the largest number of valedictorians from the high schools who are coming to UL now too. So I think they're seeing the value in an education at a university such as UL where we have a more hands-on, family-oriented atmosphere, particularly in the College of Business. And so they're coming to schools like us rather than going to the larger schools that don't have that personal relationship with their faculty and administrators.
Jeff, you're an award-winning professor. You've won multiple prestigious nationwide awards in teaching here at UL. All of us who have been students know that having an inspiring teacher leads us to being educated in a better fashion because we're motivated to learn. Does that same kind of inspiration translate into what our students do after they leave school, though? Can you inspire students to have great entrepreneurial ideas?
I think you can, and I really believe that's a two-way street as well, because the students are inspirations to the faculty who are in the classroom with them, and it's the thing that gives us the fuel to keep going year after year. And I think one thing that really I'm proud of at UL is that we have a lot of faculty within the College of Business that engage in active learning, where we bring real-world experiences into the classroom and try to replicate as much of the real world that they're going to get in the job market as we can in the classroom. So a lot of times we'll work with real clients. We'll work with, Lafayette Economic Development Authority on projects. We'll work with private sector companies, nonprofit organizations, communities. And one of the things that I've done in my classroom over a span of about 4 semesters is take our marketing and our MBA students, and we worked with the town of Delcombe for 4 semesters, so better part of 2 years. It was a collaborative.
And doing what?
Well, this was after Hurricane Rita,
okay,
and it started out as a really ambiguous project that was brought to us by the School of Architecture here at UL. They collaborated with LSU Sea Grant, LSU School of Landscape Architecture, in developing master plans for the town. Then once they were finished, they said, look, they really need help in finding funding for some of these things. And so we started out with just doing industry analyses, that, potential industries for that area. And then as we went semester by semester, the problems became a little more focused. So our contributions became, I think, a little bit richer to the community. So it was wonderful because it helps address needs that are in the community. 2, it creates dynamic problems in the classroom. But 3, the byproduct that I think serves us long term is it helps these students connect to their communities.
I want to ask you, who taught you what you teach? So who was the great teacher that you learned from to pass this on?
Well, at UL, I did my undergraduate and my MBA at UL. And I had Dr. David Strutton as a marketing professor during my MBA program. And he really challenged me, and pushed me really hard. But we also did a service learning project with the city of Crowley as our capstone course, and Dr. Bill Rowe taught that class. And the city of Crowley opened up to us, and it was a unique opportunity. And they said, look, we want you to take a look at every department and give us your recommendations. And it was awesome. I mean, we had several GAs that jumped in, and we spent a lot of time in Crowley. Took it very serious and really made some recommendations that they ended up moving forward with. So that kind of laid the groundwork for me that whenever I got into a professor position, that I wanted to give my students the same type of opportunities.
Gwen, though, I want to ask you right now about the interim tag.
Yes.
But since 2015, so we know what interim means, but why interim and why not just regular dean?
Well, because at the time when I took over, the former dean left to return to the faculty full-time. And so the university goes through the formal search process, and it happened to be that he left in December, so I was appointed in January. And the original term was to be 18 months to give the university time to do a full-blown national search. For different reasons, that search didn't come to fruition, so it was extended for a year. But we are now in the midst of that search and bringing candidates to campus now. And so my term ends June 30th.
So it's not something that you will be stepping away from.
Yes, it is. I will be returning to faculty.
You're not going to pursue, or
No.
You want to be teaching.
I'm going to be teaching again.
Teaching.
Yes.
What do you love about teaching as opposed to what you're doing right now?
Well, I love what I'm doing now, but it's a whole different challenge. And
many more management and
yes, definitely.
other issues.
I love the students, and as Jeff was saying, love doing the projects with the students and seeing them experience things that they're learning in the textbook, but they're translating it into actual practice. I guess my real passion, though, is that I teach and study abroad. And
cool.
Taking students over to Italy, and Jeff does it in France, take them for 6 weeks and help them learn about marketing, because that's also my background, while they're in Italy on the ground, and just living with the Italians and learning about life in Italy and how they do business and how they market. It's a life-changing situation for these students. And so whether it's going to Italy or it's in the classroom in a project like Jeff was talking about with the Delcombe project, it's just being a part of that life-changing experience for them that drives me.
Let me ask you about your real-world business backgrounds. Did you own a paper?
I owned probably too many businesses to recall, but
really?
yes, I did own
Okay,
a
well,
newspaper. I did.
Which one was that?
It's the Acadian. It started as there's a company in Evangeline Parish, Bon Nouvelle. It's a small newspaper there, and they had one in St. Landry Parish, and some partners and I bought out the St. Landry Parish Bon Nouvelle, and we kept it as Bon Nouvelle for a year or two, I guess, and then we spread to the whole Acadiana area, so we changed the name to the Acadian.
Okay.
It was a lifestyle newspaper.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
And
We still own
enjoyed
the
it?
company,
You
but
enjoyed it?
it's not being published right now.
okay,
Kind of don't have time right now.
okay. Jeff, I want to ask you the difference between an endowed chair. Is that a different type of professor when you got that title?
That's correct, and it's really a shift in, I guess, where you allocate your time. So, while as a professor we are, charged with teaching, research, and service, an endowed chair position, there's still those obligations, but there's also some additional responsibilities relative to kind of the charge. And the charge of my chair was set up with the college and the donors, the Moody company, and it focuses in regional business development. So right now my focus has shifted to where I serve in a liaison type role with the economic development communities throughout the Acadiana region. So,
Quick thought about you talking about your teaching abroad, and you mentioned Italy, and you teach in France. We're in the heart of Acadiana. We are the heart of Acadiana here in Lafayette. And so, do you find that some students still actually are able to speak French or know French, even if it's Cajun French, to some extent?
Sure.
Who are from this region?
Most definitely. And, we have a very strong French immersion program here in Lafayette Parish.
Because that would really, that sets this part of the state apart from the rest of the state.
Most definitely.
In a huge way.
And we also have partnerships with French universities that'll send students over
Right.
to UL as well. And so it really helps, those students when they get here and, they go hang out at Blue Moon, and all of a sudden they meet a whole bunch of students from here who could speak French.
You're listening to Out to Lunch. I'm Andre Moreau, sitting in for Peter Ricchiuti. My guests are an associate professor of marketing at UL Lafayette's Moody College of Business, Dr. Geoff Stewart, and the college's interim dean, Dr. Gwen Fontenot. Gwen, so you have students who come to school here, and of course there's a lure for many to go on to bigger cities, etc. I know it's something that Baton Rouge and LSU complain and struggle with a good bit, is being hip enough to keep people from wanting to go necessarily to Dallas or Houston. What about UL, though? Are you finding that you have more students perhaps that stay right here? And why is business so hip right now?
I think that we actually have the opposite challenge here because our students have never wanted to leave
They
because
don't leave.
life
That's
here is so good.
fascinating. Yeah, that's really good.
And so now as we get them to study abroad and they see what things are like in other parts of the world, some of them are wanting to branch out more. So now Houston is more reasonable. Austin, we have a lot of students who are in Austin. I have a few in Denver and California and Oregon. So they're starting to spread out. We actually have a few who have gone on study abroad and ended up staying in Europe. And so I think for us, it's the opposite of what you expressed with LSU. It was hard to get them to go to large
That's a
companies
wonderful
in
problem
Houston.
to have,
Yes,
huh?
it is. So we want to keep our talent at home, but sometimes it's good for them to go abroad or go over to Houston or somewhere else and experience life in a different city and then bring things back here that they've learned there.
That is definitely very cool. I love that.
Andre, I'm going to Austin as part of a delegation from Lafayette for South by Southwest. And part of my agenda while I'm there is to bring a few of our alumni who are working in Austin over to our delegation from Lafayette to make sure that they see that our students can compete with anybody in the world.
Right. One thing that's cool too is that the in-city population of Lafayette exceeds 127,000 people, but people might be surprised to find the metro is pushing 500,000. I think that would shock a lot of people, and that doesn't even include, there's an extended metro on
That's
top
right.
of that.
So our students commute from a 40-mile radius every day. And if you extend the metro to that radius, I mean, we're pushing 750,000 people.
Right.
Which is, it's hard for me to wrap my head around that sometimes. Except at 5 o'clock with traffic.
Okay, Gwen, Jeff, it is time for the part of the show where we call it, Let Me Ask You This. And I'm sure before your MBA students graduate, you prepare them for job interviews. And I've got a list of questions in front of me that were dreamed up by human resources folks, mostly in the Silicon Valley. These questions are designed to go beyond a job applicant's standard responses and find out something about their creativity and also their cognitive ability. So we're going to try this on you, all right? I'm going to ask each of you a random question and one of these questions each. Gwen, pick a number between 1 and 20.
17.
And question 17 is, what was the last gift you gave someone? What was the last gift you gave someone?
A Yeti ice chest.
A Yeti ice chest. That's pretty Louisiana if you're going to go fishing, hunting,
Yes.
a lot of things.
Yep.
Tailgating.
Yeah.
It works.
Yep.
Is that a question that you would ask perhaps in a job interview situation with somebody? Have you ever thought of that?
I have
question?
never thought of asking that question, no.
All right, so
But if that's the most difficult question on the interview, I'm
there's
great.
some other ones I can ask you. I can ask you another one if you want me to.
No, that's great.
You want-
I like
you
that
know
one.
You ready for yours?
Sure.
All right, Jeff, you pick a number between 1 and 20.
7.
7. How many people flew out of Chicago last year?
It's a million.
I need to scramble into Google right now to find out if we have the answer to that. If you've been at O'Hare Airport ever, it probably feels like it's a million
million a
every
day.
5 minutes. But okay, so a question like that, what does a question like that force someone to do? I mean, think for one thing, and also think where the heck did this question come from? But if you're asking a question like that, what does that pull out of someone?
Well, one, I think it forces them to give you an answer, but two, it gives the employer, I believe, the opening to then say, okay, so tell me how you came up with that answer. So it lets them explain to you, okay, was this just a wild guess? Or did you think about, okay, if there's X number of people on a plane, how many planes in a day, in a week, and so on and so forth. And what's their thought process behind it? So you could see, is this person very analytical,
Right.
or are they just...
Would it help them, and how are they in problem solving? How would
Right.
they approach certain obstacles that they come
Right.
in touch with? Something like
Right.
that. Okay. How was it that you came up with your answer?
So I started thinking about number of people on a plane, how many planes, and a million's probably very low in that. But I actually did a very similar exercise in my class.
Did you really?
My marketing research
Well,
class
tell me
this
about it,
Wednesday. So I said, okay, so let's do a market forecast of how many pizzas will be eaten by college students in the state of Louisiana in a year.
Okay.
So they immediately started thinking, okay, well, how many students are there? Right, and each team was broken up, and they all had to come up with their own forecast. Well, so they all explained it, and they were all fairly close. So I mean, within a couple 100,000 of each other. And at the end, they said, "Well, what's the answer?" And I said, "I have no idea, but do you think we're in the ballpark?" And for the research class, I was trying to show them that we could come up with a forecast. The key is how much error is in the forecast. And are we in the ballpark? Yes. And I said, but we're probably sitting in left field up in the third deck. Now how do we get to home plate?
Right.
Different question.
Right.
So that's the same type of thing that this interview question goes through. So where's the answer? How'd you get there?
What are the size of the typical classes in the different business school classes, I would say?
So in the Moody College, our largest classroom that we have is for seating for 100. And we'll typically just do a principles of marketing, a principles of management type of class in there. Outside of that, the max seating is 48. So
this is pretty intimate, really, for to me. Well, when I think of my college experience, that's really almost one-on-one.
Most definitely.
Yeah. And when you get to the senior level classes and some of the MBA classes, they'll be smaller than that. Like our sales classes are going to be about 22 to 25 in it. A specialty elective might just have 12, 15 students in it.
Is this the best time, even though state colleges are undergoing seemingly constant, money problems and having to operate on less? But is it really one of the best times?
Well, I think we could point to a time where we started with closed admissions, and I think that was a shift, so to speak. But I think it's important to also note that UL had open admissions for a long time because we didn't have a community college system.
Okay.
And Dr. Audemont really felt it was important that everybody in Acadiana had access to higher education. And so with the community college system came the closing of admissions and raising of standards. And from there, I think what we see is that we have a little bit higher density of students with higher ACT scores. And so it started to shift a little bit in terms of the rigor and the expectations and those kind of things. But then also, I think we have a lot of momentum over the last 7-8 years because the engagement on campus has really changed. And with the new dormitories that were built, we have, I think it's over 3,000 students that are living on campus now, which we hadn't had before. So it really changes the dynamic.
Well, that's going to completely change the community feel and the
Most
feeling
definitely.
of closeness.
Most definitely.
For one thing, what about the number of students coming in from out of state? What's the range of that?
Overall, across the university, well, out of state, I don't have the exact percentage. Internationally, it's about 7%.
Yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned internationally. So, and from where internationally would that be the most?
It's a huge number
It's
of
all
countries.
over.
I forgot how many
Okay.
countries. I want to say something like 80 countries or
Okay.
something. But what we're seeing in the College of Business and in the whole university is we used to recruit heavily from the Acadiana area. And if we got anybody from Baton Rouge, that was kind of miraculous. But now New Orleans is one of our largest recruiting areas. And we now have recruiting people along the Gulf Coast, all the way into the Texas Gulf Coast. So we've really expanded. It's not unusual at all to have students from even, the Midwest, the Northeast, I had a couple from California recently. So they're not just here. A lot of them have parents who were graduates of here, and so they come back to UL because of that.
Right.
Yeah.
And
So it's pretty diverse.
That's pretty cool to see.
We have a student right now from Brooklyn in marketing. We recently had one from Connecticut, and asking them, there's no family connection. But when they look at UL for the money, even without a state tuition, UL is a very good value. When you look at the research productivity of the faculty and the university, the quality of education, it's a very good value for the money.
Gwen and Jeff, although people continue to argue about atmospheric climate change, there is no doubt that the change of the business climate here in Acadiana is real, and that's great news. Part of the reason our economy is diversified enough to continue to thrive in the face of the downturn in oil is the contribution of graduates from the business school at UL. I'm not authorized to speak on behalf of everybody in Acadiana, but I don't think anybody would object to me thanking you on behalf for everything that y'all are doing, because people are noticing and they're seeing it and talking about it. So thank you also for being here with me today on Out to Lunch. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's our
Thank you.
pleasure.
You're welcome.
Really great to meet both of you. My guests on Out to Lunch today have been Dr. Gwen Fontenot, the Interim Dean of the B.I. Moody III College of Business Administration at the University of Louisiana Lafayette. That's a mouthful, isn't it? It really is. And Dr. Geoffrey Stewart, the Moody College of Business Administration's Associate Professor of Marketing. You can find out more about Gwen, Jeff, and the Magic Kingdom, simply known in business circles around here as UL. We can say it like that, and people definitely know what we're talking about by following the links on our websites, krvs.org and itsacadiana.com. Today's show is recorded live over lunch at Cafe Vermilionville. Cafe V is open Monday to Friday for lunch and 6 nights a week for dinner, with a courtyard that sets the scene for fine Louisiana cuisine. The producer of our show is Grant Morris. Our technical producer is Eric Murrell. Our researcher is Ann Christian. Our theme song, Encore Monsieur Nice Guy, is written by Mitch Foreman and performed by Mitch Foreman and Andre Michaud. Our Acadiana business consultants are Pete Prados from Innovate Acadiana, also Zach Barker from The Opportunity Machine, and Dr. Blake Escaday. If you want to know what we all look like as we sit around the lunch table here and talk here on Out to Lunch, you can find photos from this show on our website and the Facebook page. These photos were taken by Gwen Aucoin. You can get this show as a podcast, and you can also get past shows. You can keep up with us on all kinds of social media by going to our websites. It's Acadiana.com and krvs.org. Support for Out to Lunch Acadiana comes from the Wyndham Garden Lafayette, located off Pinhook near Calise Saloon. Wyndham Garden Lafayette specializes in events like weddings, corporate meetings, and family reunions. Additional support comes from ABiz Magazine and AcadianaBusiness.com, the essential information source for business decision makers throughout the One Acadiana region. Out to Lunch is a production of INO Broadcasting for itsacadiana.com and KRVS 88.7 FM. I'm Andre Moreau. On behalf of Peter Ricchiuti, thanks for joining me. We'll be back here at Cafe V next week, and I hope you'll join us then for more business Acadiana style on Out to Lunch.
Major support for Out to Lunch Acadiana is provided by the law firm of Jones Walker. Established in 1937 with over 375 attorneys in offices throughout the U.S., providing a comprehensive range of services to a local, national, and international client base. JonesWalker.com. And by Business First Bank, with locations throughout the state, including Lafayette and Lake Charles, providing personal and commercial banking, treasury management, and wealth solution services to help clients succeed. Business First Bank, banking with greater momentum at b1bank.com. Support also comes from Wyndham Garden Lafayette.